So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Hiroki back here, BSN Network. This is BSN Network Podcast here today. It is Tuesday, August 10th. Hopefully everybody's having a day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is in fact Tuesday, August 10th here today, coming off of another wild night in baseball last night as the New York Yankees get the win over the Kansas City Royals in just a crazy game, a crazy ending. 11 innings, and the Yankees are able to find a way to get a win, and yet again, it's like they just get the win. It was close. They just get the win. It was a close game. It was very, very close, and the Yankees just get the victory. They were so close to losing that game, very close to not getting the win. They blow, so many leads. They take a lead, then they blow it. Take a lead, then they blow it. Take a lead, then they blow it. I believe they're like the first team in history to have like 3 leads and blow them all in extra innings or whatever, something like that. But they get the win, and that's all that matters. And I've always said this: it doesn't matter how you get the win, but as long as you get it, that's all that matters. And, yesterday, it was a wild one. It wasn't the easiest win ever. If you follow what I'm saying, kind of pretty crazy. A lot of action, stuff that I think, the Yankees made it hard for themselves, I should say. Simple as that. They made it hard for themselves, and, they just got the win. They were very close to, losing that game, and they just got the win. So, really happy about it. They showed fight all night. They kept on grinding. They took a lead, lost a lead. Took another lead, lost another lead. Finally, they hung on to a lead, got the win. And, these are the wins that you look back on and you say, even though it's against a struggling Royals team, and even though, there was many crazy moments, these are the wins that come back on. These are the wins that it takes the entire team. It takes late game hits. It takes defense. It takes pitching. It takes clutch pitching late. These are the wins that take the entire team. Not just one or two guys, the entire team. Because you have to think, for a game to go into 11 innings, there's got to be at least half the team that needs to contribute with a big hit. Voit had a couple big hits. LeMahieu had a big hit. Gardner a couple big hits. You had Judge a couple big hits. 4, 5, 6 guys really stepping up. This was like a full team effort last night. So a really good win for the New York Yankees. Second game of the 3-game set today in Kansas City. Mets open up a series against the Washington Nationals. That's the first of 3 tonight. We'll see if the Mets come out. We'll see if the Mets come out with any new energy. We'll see. I know a lot of people are kind of thinking about maybe do they shake up the lineup a little bit. We'll see. There's a lot of questions. How do the Mets respond? They're going up against a Nationals team that's sold at the deadline, a struggling Nationals team. We'll see how the New York Mets respond, because I'll tell you what. This is like a gift of a series. You get this series, then you got to go and play brutal teams. You got to play the 2 best teams in the National League, and that's the Dodgers and Giants, I believe. Now, you could say Padres, you could say some other teams, but the Dodgers and Giants right now are record-wise the 2 best teams in the National League. So you got to play the Dodgers, you got to play the Giants. It's not going to be easy at all. They got to get the job done. And the Mets start tonight against the Nationals. And you kind of think of tonight's game and then Wednesday's game and Thursday's game as a golden opportunity to take at least 2 out of 3 before you head into the gauntlet of the schedule, where you got a lot of really hard opponents coming up. So, Dodgers, Giants, and the Nationals start up with a 3-game set tonight. So, that's what I got for the baseball. There's also some other NBA Summer League stuff going on, some more NFL, just training camp stuff going on. So, a lot around the sports world, a lot to get to. Let's get to the topics for today's podcast. Like I just mentioned, training camp in full swing. Lots of NFL stories to talk about. Bosa's going to be ready for Week 1. We see here that Trey Lance might be taking the job over Jimmy Garoppolo. we're hearing that just some other stuff. Obviously, your local New York, your local New York sports teams, that the ones that I talk about, the New York sports, is Jets and Giants. There's always news about them, different stories about them. There's just a ton of other stuff to get to, so I wanted to get to the Giants today. Saquon Barkley has officially been activated off of the physically unable to play list, or unable to practice list, or play, whatever it is, participate, whatever you want to say. It's all means the same thing. He's been activated. So yesterday was his first official practice with the New York Giants. Yesterday, coming off of the torn ACL that he suffered last season. I wanted to get into this, how this is pivotal for the New York Giants, talk about my thoughts on what to expect if you're a New York Giants fan, because I think definitely the excitement's there. It's just a matter of, can Barkley bounce back from such a big injury, and such a big injury to a running back with a torn ACL. Running backs obviously using a lot of their lower body, cutting, running. I mean, running. You're using most of your lower body. So obviously there's a lot there. Lowering your shoulder and, trying to drive with your legs, get first downs and all that stuff. There's a lot there. There's a lot of lower body strength that takes into a running back. I wanted to talk about my thoughts on if he's going to bounce back, and kind of just get into what this means for the New York Giants, because very good news here, and very good news, not just for the Giants, but across the league. I like Saquon Barkley a lot. He's a fun player to watch. He's got, I think I definitely think he truly just loves the game of football. I do think that he's a team player. He's a guy that goes out there and will do anything to win. So I'll get into him, talk about what that means for the New York Giants. Some hockey news as well with the New York Rangers. Like I said, there's a lot to get to, but I kind of want to get to the stuff that happens, within the, kind of breaking news stuff. So yesterday we learned for the New York Rangers that they've extended Igor Shesterkin to a 4-year deal. It is actually a record-breaking deal. It is a deal that a lot of people definitely, I don't know if many people expected, but it's a record-breaking 4-year deal. Now, it's not so much the it's kind of the money part, but it's not like a major money, like $500 million deal. It's not. NHL don't have that big of salaries, but they did give him a record-breaking deal. I think it's the highest in history for a goaltender's second deal or whatever. So the Rangers go out and spend some money. Chris Drury goes out and spends some money. They extend Igor Shesterkin. So I wanted to get into him, talk about what it means, and I also kind of want to get into what this could mean for the backup goalie position. Because last season, you had Shesterkin as the number one. Then you had Georgiev. And Keith Kincaid came in there from a little bit. And Keith Kincaid actually had a couple really good performances. Georgiev really struggled last season. And Shesterkin was obviously the best. So, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the backup goalie position, if they decide to move on from Georgiev, if they decide to hang on to Georgiev and maybe, keep him kind of on the roster, and maybe have Kincaid, kind of what they did last season, and kind of play hot hand in a way. Whoever's got the hot hand, you put him in, one of those things. It's going to be interesting. I do think it could be a preseason battle. I think depending on, who could be that second goaltender spot, and we'll see. So I want to get into Shesterkin and get into the Rangers. And then I want to get into the New York Sports Update. As always, we'll finish off the podcast with the New York Sports Update. Yankees' second game of the 3-game set today, along with the New York Mets opening up a 3-game set against the Nationals. And, NBA Summer League was on yesterday, I think or in the afternoon yesterday, I believe. I think the Nets played. I was watching that, and I know they played. Watching that, I believe they lost. I was watching it, flipping through different things. So they ended up taking a loss. Cam Thomas, for first pick, he did well. He had 17 points, I think. Wasn't crazy efficient from the floor. I think he shot like 33%, but he did his job. He scored, and that's what he did in college. And is this a guy that's going to, is Cam Thomas, is he going to be a guy that's going to go out and shoot 50%? Probably not, but he's going to score. And that's what he did yesterday. 17 points for the Nets in the Summer League. So Cameron Thomas looking pretty good. All right, so with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. All right, so Giants Saquon Barkley activated off PUP list amid injury rehab. So PUP means physically unable to practice. You could say anything. You could say unable to play, unable to practice, unable to participate. many different words you could put in there. They all mean the exact thing. Pretty much, it meant that he was on a list where he was not able to practice. He was not ready to practice yet. He was still recovering from the torn ACL that he suffered last season. I believe it might have been like week 2, I believe, last year, where he suffered the torn ACL against the Chicago Bears, and just was not, he never, obviously, once you tore your ACL, your season's over. It doesn't matter what week you're in. It doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter, if your team makes the playoffs or whatever it is. You're not coming back. A torn ACL usually takes about a year or so to recover. Some players it takes shorter. Some players it's quick. Some players it's longer. Some players it's just about right on time. I would tend to say that most recently in the recent history, I would say that it's taken relatively shorter to come back. I just think, with all the technology nowadays and all the different rehab stuff and all, the different, plans on what you should do, and there's a lot, it's much more, I think, not saying it's easy to rehab from a torn ACL, but I would tend to say that with all the technology and all the, the trainers and all that stuff, helping you out throughout the way with your knee injury, I think a lot of guys tend now to go out and have more of a speedier recovery than missing a year and a half because of a torn ACL. I mean, we saw Beckham, he tore his ACL last season. He's back, and he's even way before the game because he actually injured it like middle of the year last year. So definitely torn ACLs tend to, you come back. Nowadays, you see a lot more early recoveries. But it still is pretty crazy that, you come back much earlier with a torn ACL because a torn ACL is a very bad injury. We all know that. You go through them, you go through the injury scale, and you have like a knee, you'll have your knee injuries, maybe, or whatever, maybe a sprain or something, then you get into the fractures and the breaks, which aren't great, and then you get into the tears, and that's when it really gets bad, and especially for a running back like Saquon Barkley with the torn ACL to a running back is a big blow because we all know running back, 90% of what you're using is your legs. I mean, you're making cuts. You're trying to drive your way through the pile. You're going upfield. You're running in general. You're using a lot of your lower half, and you're making cuts. That's one of the big things because that's one of the big things that Barkley's been known for throughout his career is making those cuts, right? Throughout his short career so far because he hasn't been in the league for that long, still a young player. So for Barkley, a guy who is a running back, uses his lower half a lot, one of the big things that was a big question after he tore his ACL was, number one, can he bounce back? Number two, is he going to have the cutting like he did? Because we all know Barkley can catch it behind the line of scrimmage, maybe break one or two defenders, and then, go upfield and maybe cut again and get 9 yards out of a play that looked like it was going to be nothing. He finds a way to get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yards out of it. And that was Barkley's strength before the injury. So it is going to be interesting to see how he bounced back. But having Saquon Barkley back in general in camp for the New York Giants is a big plus. Because the New York Giants, let's be honest here, people, they are going into a huge year when it comes to playoffs, when it comes to success, when it comes to their quarterback, when it comes to kind of the future of their offense in general. Because this year is the most pivotal year for Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones doesn't have a good year this year, which I don't think he will, personally, I don't think Daniel Jones is the answer. I've said it many times in this podcast. I'm going to say it again, but that's a different story, different day. Daniel Jones, this is a make or break season for him. If he has a good year, they'll keep him. I think the Giants still have to make a decision. Let's just say he has an average year. Maybe they just missed the playoffs. You got to make that decision. That's going to be like a 50-50. That's up to the front office. If he has a terrible year, you get rid of him. If he has a good year, he's moving on. So it's a pivotal year for the New York Giants offense. And I could even make the argument, too, that if Daniel Jones doesn't have if Daniel Jones and the offense as a whole struggles this season, you might see changes to the offensive side of the ball and their coaching staff. Not Joe Judge and the defense side of the ball, because the defense has been great, and Joe Judge is, only in his second year as the head coach. But maybe Jason Garrett, maybe some other coaches, quarterbacks coach, you could see maybe some of the other offenses coaches be gone. So this is a big year for the New York Giants, mainly on the offensive side of the ball. I would also say overall, Because the Giants, let's be honest, they did spend money this offseason. They went out and got, Kenny Golladay. They gave him a lot of money, which, I agree with the move. You need a receiving core. You need a number one receiver. He is injury prone, so it is a little bit of a higher risk move because if he does get injured, you're paying him a lot of money to sit the sideline. But if he can stay healthy, he's one of the better receivers. He's definitely a very good receiver and very reliable as well. You went out and extended Leonard Williams, so you made moves. You signed some of the, some other guys here and there. Then you get some guys back. It is a big season. And when you're going into a big year, you need all your assets ready. You need all your assets fully healthy, fully ready. If you sign a guy, you need him ready to go, learning the playbook, ready for week 1. Drafting a guy, you need him ready to go, learning the playbook by week 1. So in such a pivotal year for the New York Giants and their offense, it is huge to see that Saquon Barkley is right on track with his recovery. And actually, you could say he's about a month ahead of schedule than what many people expected. And now that he's already back at practice, now sure, did he say that he was going to play week 1? No. He did kind of leave that up in the air. But now that he's already back at practice, and he seems already like he's back healthy, and he's back ready to go, it's almost like now the New York Giants could have their star running back ready for week 1. And for such a pivotal year in an offense, with Daniel Jones this being his big make-or-break year, we always talk about second and third years with quarterbacks. We always talk about when a quarterback gets a true receiver, we need to see what he can do. We always talk about that kind of stuff. So now that Daniel Jones has finally got that, and you can't make the excuse now that Barkley's not in the backfield because he's got Saquon Barkley back as well. And now the offense for the New York Giants, outside of the offensive line, which is still a work in progress, is now looks complete. And I think the Giants here should play, like I said, Barkley's still not, they're going to ease himself. They're going to ease him into it. They're not just going to throw him out there week 1 if he's not ready. We'll see if he's fully ready. Like I just said about a minute ago, he didn't say that he was going to be ready for week 1, nor did he say, now he did say he wanted to be ready for week 1, and I think he expects to be ready for week 1, but he didn't confirm it. Because you also got to see, this isn't just Barkley's plan. The New York Giants got to agree with it well. If the New York Giants see that maybe he could use another week of practice before he goes and plays, then maybe the Giants will do that. If Barkley says he's ready and the Giants don't believe he is, you got to play the long game because Barkley's had 2 big injuries through his career here with the New York Giants, and you can't sit here and say he's not injury prone because he's had 2 big injuries. So he's had a torn ACL and he had a high ankle sprain. So if you're the New York Giants, you got to play the long game with him. You can't rush him back. If he misses week 1, it's not the end of the world. But it is great to see that he's back out there. Yesterday was his first practice, August 9th, more than a month away from the first game. For a guy that some people expected maybe to miss some of next season at the point last year where he tore his ACL. Because anytime you tear your ACL, or when a player tears ACL, the worst possible things enter your mind. Like, oh, this guy's going to miss half of next season. Oh, is this guy going to be the same exact player? But if you, on the positive side of things, the glass half full side of things, you could say, hey, it's, like last season he injured in week 2. Let's say he does miss the first 3 weeks. Well, he's still playing, he's still going to play the rest of the season. So I think if you're the Giants here, you do have to play the long game with Barkley. You can't rush him back. He gets injured week 1 and boom, he misses 8 weeks this season. That can't happen. Especially if you want this guy to be in your franchise for a long time. If he has another big injury this season, I don't know what his future holds for the New York Giants. But we all know what Barkley can do when he's healthy. He's arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL when he's healthy. As a matter of fact, before all these injuries hit, I think he was the best running back in the league. Maybe the second best behind McCaffrey, but you could easily make that argument. So Barkley's got to get back up to that level. And the Giants got to play the long game with him. They got to be smart with this. And right, they will. I mean, I don't have, they're going to be smart. They realize that he's already had injury history. They realize he's already had 2 big injuries throughout his career. One major injury, another one that sidelined him for a while as well. The high ankle sprain and the major torn ACL that sidelined him for the rest of the season last year. So the Giants, I definitely think there's definitely optimism around Barkley playing week 1. But if you're the New York Giants, you got to take the slow approach, and you got to take the approach of we got to play the long game with him. Because, the healthier he is towards the end of the year when you need him, that's what matters most. If he misses week 1, that's not going to matter if he's making big plays in December. If you rush him to week 1 and he's not out there in December when you're maybe trying to battle for a playoff spot, that's going to be an issue. So you got to play the long game with him. Because I think with the New York Giants, the mindset is you got to have this guy healthy for the end of the season and for the parts of the season where you have big matchups. Week 1, it's the Denver Broncos. Okay? Broncos are a rebuilding team. If you're without Barkley, I don't know if there's going to be much issues throughout that game. But if you have Barkley, it does make it a lot better. But you got to play the slow game. Barkley, this kind of reminds me of like Aaron Judge and the Yankees. Yankees played the slow game with Judge, right? They're having him play, not the slow game, but they're playing him the long game. He's playing and he's doing all that stuff, but there are a couple days off in there. He's kind of changed a little bit of his workout style. He's trying to stay his best, staying healthy. Giants need to do the same thing with Barkley. They realize he has an injury history since he's entered the league. You need to make sure that he's healthy. But this is a huge step in the right direction to see Barkley back out there. It's good that he's getting back in the offense, working with some of the new guys. And the more and more practice reps he gets under, and the more comfortable he gets, he'll be back out there sooner rather than later. And that's one of the big things, too, is just taking those first couple hits, just making those first couple cuts, and making sure that your knee feels good. Your confidence on that just goes through the roof. Everyone's always said that. A lot of these former players say that the biggest thing is not going into a game, but it's taking the first hit. Alex Smith said the same thing. When he got injured with his leg, he said the first thing that he was really worried about was taking that first hit. So Barkley, it's almost like the same thing. It's making that first cut. It's, making that first couple runs here and there. It's taking that first big hit, right? Those type of things. Once those are out of the way, then it's full on. We'll see when Barkley's ready. But this is huge because, like I said, for the Giants as a team coming into such a pivotal year for the offense. I mean, you could make the argument if Daniel Jones doesn't have a good year this year, you could be drafting a quarterback in April, okay, when the draft comes around again. This is such a pivotal year for the New York Giants, offensively. So, you need all your guys ready to go. And big step in the right direction for Saquon Barkley and the New York Giants as he got activated off the physically unable to perform list. So perform, practice, participate, play, all that stuff. It's officially physically unable to perform list, but you could say practice, you could say play, you could say participate, you could say any of that. It all means the same. You can't practice. And now he's able to, and he's back in the groove, and we'll see if he does return week 1 or whatever it is. We'll see. Let's read this quick article here. Giants Saquon Barkley activated off PUP list amid injury rehab, physically unable to perform. New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley was activated off the physically unable to perform list and returned to practice Monday. Barkley has been out of action since tearing his ACL in week 2 of last season. After practice, Barkley discussed the possibility that he may be available for the team's week 1 opener against the Denver Broncos. I guess you can say, with my mindset, I'm definitely hopeful, Barkley told reporters. It's definitely better being able to practice now than later on in camp. That's what he said, right? He did not confirm anything. He did not say he was going to practice, or he did not say he was going to, be ready. He just said that, he's optimistic, but, you also got to, I think Barkley, too. I think Barkley realizes these are big years for him. Because if he has another major injury, I mean, what does the future hold for him then as the running back for the New York Giants? And the Giants, too, they got to realize for such a big year, you got to make sure he's ready. You got to make sure he's ready for the long game. If he misses week 1, it's not the end of the world. There's still 16 other games to play. Paul Schwartz of the New York Post said that the team will use the next 5 weeks to determine whether Barkley will be in the lineup for Week 1 against the Denver Broncos. A previous report from Ian Rappaport of Elvo Network indicated he will be out until Week 3. So it's all up in the air. But at the end of the day, it's the trainers, it's the coaching staff, it's the front office of the New York Giants that makes the decision whether or not their star running back will be ready for Week 1. That's it. It's not insiders. It's not, it's not any of these other people. It's the New York Giants, the trainers, and the Giants as a whole. It's their decision. So, like I said, we'll find out whether or not he's playing Week 1 relatively soon, I would say, throughout training camp. But I think if Barkley feels good, but maybe the Giants want him to, maybe just get another week or 2 of practice under his belt, then that's going to happen. It's all up to the Giants. That's kind of it. I'm feeling good, Barkley said in July. I'm doing good, taking it day by day, trying to get 1% better every single day. I'm enjoying my time. Obviously, camp is approaching soon, so I'm enjoying time with my family and still trying to get the work in that I can before things ramp up. That's what Saquon Barkley said back in July. Barkley's return is expected to play a major role in the Giants' expected offensive improvement this season. Devontae Booker will get the majority of the work until Barkley is cleared to return to game action. Before anyone says, put him in a preseason game and see how he does, I would not do that. I would not even risk that. Nor even if he wasn't injured, I don't even know if Barkley would be playing in preseason because it's preseason. Nothing against the players that are trying to make roster spots, but he's a starter, so you're not going to see him get major time. I think this is just something that you got to slowly build up, and that's kind of what he said, getting 1% better each day. You don't need to try to do 500 different things with him every day. Just do certain things. And slowly build him back up to the running back that he was before the torn ACL. And we'll see if he's ready for Week 1. I think that's still a question. I think that's something that the New York Giants are going to have to decide on. It could be a decision that, it really could be the Sunday of the first game, he could be questionable. That's how close it could be. It could be that. It could be a game time decision. It could come down to that. But what the Giants got to do is they just got to play this thing slow and make sure that he is 110% ready. Because, this is their star running back they're talking about. And for a guy that's already had 2 big injuries in his career, you can't risk another one in such a big season. But this is a huge step forward for Barkley and the New York Giants. And, kind of that optimistic mindset is it can only get better from here. He can only improve more from here. So, you read some of the numbers, and when he's healthy, this is what he can do. You saw his first 2 years, he got over 1,000 yards. His first year in the league, 1,307 yards. He averaged 5 yards a carry, 11 touchdowns, 50 first downs, 78 was his longest run. And you look at the next year, 1,003 yards, which he got in 13 games. And then you look at 2020, where he struggled. 2 games. He didn't do much in those 2 games, but you can't judge him off of 2 games because he was injured. A guy that's 24 years old, and, he's a running back, so, running backs don't usually play too long in the NFL. You see them, their careers tend to be a little shorter, but this is why this is so pivotal. And in his career, he's played 31 games, 497 attempts, 2,344 yards, 4.7 is his average per carry, 17 touchdowns in his career, 78 was his longest run, 96 first downs. He has not fumbled once in his career, and his receiving numbers are just as good. In his first season, he had 91 catches for 101 targets, 721 yards, 4 touchdowns, 57 was his longest, and 30 first downs. He's only had 1 fumble in his receiving. Last season, he actually did relatively well receiving. 2 games, 6 catches, 9 targets, 60 yards, 10 was his average per catch. He's had 1,219 receiving yards in his career, 149 receptions, 203 targets. His average per catch is 8.2, which is actually pretty cool because sometimes he does screens and they're like 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, or even, they're at the line of scrimmage and he still finds a way to get 8-9 yards out of it. And that's a big part of him. His cutting, his ability to speed up, his ability to lower his shoulders, ability to gain 3-4 extra yards when the play looked like it was done. That's what he can do. I'm going to say it, I'm going to say it again. And then we'll move on to the next topic about Igor Shesterkin. When he's healthy, when he's fully out there, healthy and ready, he is one of the best running backs in the league. And for such a big year for the New York Giants in terms of offense, and if their offense isn't good this year, there could be changes at not only quarterback, but maybe the offensive side of the coaching staff. You need him to be at 110. You need him to be at the best possible Barkley he can be. You need him to be ready. So, huge step in the right direction, like I've said 5 million times already. And he's got to continue to build. And as we get closer and closer and closer to week 1, we'll see if he's ready for week 1. But right now, if you're the Giants fan, I think you just got to be happy that he's out there and he's practicing again. I don't think you want to get too wrapped up, and if he's going to be ready for week 1 or if it's going to be later on in the season, just be happy that he's back out there and playing again. That's all. So that's what I got for Saquon Barkley and the New York Giants. And we'll see how much longer he's out, when he comes back, all that stuff. And coming up in the next couple weeks here. That's what's so fun about training camp. Not that injuries are fun. I'm not saying that it's good, but I'm saying, like, this is something to watch for now. Like, you could watch for this the next couple weeks here in training camp. You got to watch, what does Barkley do? How does he progress? Is he progressing well? I know training camp's a little different than the game, but, still making those cuts, doing those individual drills. How does he do? Those are all questions that will be asked, but very good news to see him back out there on the field. And I've always said that, I'm not a big Giants fan. I'm really not. Being a Jets fan, I have no... Giants can do whatever they want. I don't really care. I'm a Jets fan. But I do really like Saquon Barkley. I've liked him since he came out of college. I've always thought he was a really good running back rather. He's just an all-around really good player. Receiving, rushing, he can do it all. So, good to see him back out there. Alrighty, so coming up next here, I wanted to get into the Rangers extend Igor Shesterkin. Record for goalie's second deal. So, he made an NHL record yesterday with the deal. No, this is not one of these crazy $500 billion deals, or I'm exaggerating, but it is like that, $200 million deal and 5-year deal. It's not one of those. It's the NHL, so contracts are a little lower, but the fact is, the New York Rangers went out and extended their starting goaltender. I'll get into this and get into more of the New York Rangers coming up next. Alrighty, so we all can be back here. Report, Igor Shesterkin, Rangers reach $22.7 million contract record for goalie's second deal. So, yes, you heard that right. The New York Rangers have extended Igor Shesterkin, their starting goaltender. It's been crazy because in sports the past couple days, really the past couple years, and obviously each year, you're going to see bigger and bigger and bigger contracts, and I feel like I'm talking about this like every day. Yesterday, talking about Josh Allen. The other day, I was talking about Stephen Curry. Luka Doncic got extended yesterday. Now it's, Igor Shesterkin. It's kind of funny because I feel like they all happen at once. Like there's always like there's a deal, like a massive deal here, and then another team they gotta match that massive deal. And there's another play out there that wants that big deal, so then they get a bigger deal. It's pretty crazy. Now, let me tell you, $22.7 million is a lot of money. I would gladly take $22.7 million right now. But what I'm trying to say here is with the Igor Shesterkin stuff, it's much lower than a $500 million deal or a $200 million deal in the NBA, NFL, or MLB. That's what I'm trying to say. But this is a big deal for hockey terms. Now, this is a very interesting move because I as a Ranger fan, I did not see this coming. I did not see this coming one bit. I just heard about the deal and I was, I don't know what my thought. I mean, like I said, this is a guy who last season had his moments. Definitely, I've said this. He struggled a little bit earlier in the year. I was talking about that, earlier in the season for last year. It seems like forever ago, but I was talking about that earlier in the year last year. Where he struggled early in the season. He did. Shesterkin last year. But he picked it up towards the end of the year. And I think that's, for a guy that has played behind Lundqvist for a little bit, and he's a young player, and he's got a bright future, and, kind of what we saw out of Shesterkin late in the season is what we should expect and what we expect to see for Shesterkin later on in his career. It's not that I don't like the move. It's not that I love the move. It's another move. It's another, deal. It's just another extension. It's kind of the New York Rangers saying, hey, we have full trust. We have full belief that Igor Shesterkin is the guy. Now, is he going to put up Henrik Lundqvist stuff and go down as an all-time great as a New York Ranger or an all-time great as an NHL goalie? I don't know. I would not say that, but I do believe he's going to have an excellent career. And I think this is almost like a move. Now, you could judge off all of his stats. You could say all you want about what he's done and all this stuff. He had a good year last year. There's no debating. He had a good year last year. And I think a lot of people, especially Rangers fans, saw that in the beginning of the season, he did struggle a little bit. I think the Rangers as a whole struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season. You kind of had, the couple weeks of getting ready to play, and then you kind of just went out and, the first 10, 15 games for the New York Rangers were definitely a little bit of a struggle. And I think we can all agree on that. They weren't able to hold on to leads. They were blowing some games. It was definitely a struggle. So as the whole team, it was a little bit of a struggle. And I feel like Shesterkin, being a young goaltender he is, being this has been like the first time in his career he fully got the starter role. He struggled a little bit in the beginning of the year, but he really picked it up. It's kind of like as the team picked it up, he picked it up. And then the team, obviously the Rangers, got going. Even towards the end of the season, he started to really pick it up and was just then consistent throughout the year. And I've always talked about it in sports. Whatever league you play in, whatever sport you play, if you could be consistent and you could be consistently good, that's all that matters. I don't really care, what your stats. If you could just be consistently good, that's all that matters. And Shesterkin was that after those first couple weeks of the year where he started to really come along as a goalie and he really started to be much better. I think he realized he needed to step up. I think he realized, that's kind of the young part of him. I think, the pressure and being kind of the starting goaltender and kind of having that job, I think might have got to him early on in the year. Also just a weird off season and just a weird year in general. You always got to put that into effect. As the year went on, and as the New York Rangers as a team went on, he got more comfortable. I think the Rangers as a whole got more comfortable. And that's the same thing here with the Rangers team as a whole. It was a lot of young guys in the beginning of the year. In the first game, a lot of the young guys had really bad games. But guess what? They started to pick it up. They started to play much better. And as a group, as a team, they all developed and they got much better throughout the year went on. And I think that's really what you got to take, is what Shesterkin did really from the middle to the end of last year, and really for mainly the whole year, because he was solid. He did have a couple rough stretches here and there, rough stretch in the beginning, but overall he was solid. The percent of good to bad was way outweighed to the good. And I think that's why the Rangers extend here. He's young. He's just coming up into his prime years. He showed flashes of being great. I mean, he did. He really did. Sure, he showed flashes of being young and being why he's a young goaltender, but that's going to happen. Being a young goaltender, it's not an easy thing to do. It's going to take time to develop and turn into an experienced and good goaltender. It's going to take time to develop. It's going to take time to learn. It's going to take time to grow. It's going to take time. And last season, he really showed what he could be with some of the games he had. So yes, some people might say this is a risky deal. There's always risk whenever you sign somebody. There's always risk whenever you extend somebody. There's always risk. Because if it doesn't work out, it's going to look like a terrible deal. I mean, just use an example. If the Josh Allen deal doesn't work out, just because that's the one that's on this paper and I talked about yesterday. I'm not saying it's not going to work out. You could go back to the podcast yesterday and hear my thoughts on that deal. But if that deal doesn't go well, it blows up in your face. Every deal there's a risk, but every deal there's always a reward. And I personally think the reward is getting a really good goaltender and your franchise goaltender locked up for the next 4 years. And the money that the Rangers are giving him, and only his second contract, the trust that the Rangers are having him does go to show you that this is him. This is the Rangers guy. It's not Georgiev. It's not someone else. Shesterkin is the Rangers guy. And I think there's kind of that part of you that says he can only get better from here. I don't think he can get worse. Maybe he stays on playing a little bit, but I think he can only get better because he's young, and this is really his golden opportunity to show that he can be the guy for the New York Rangers. And Chris Drury and the front office for the Rangers clearly see him as the franchise guy. Now, sure, there is risk on this deal because he's young still, and you're investing a lot of money into a guy that's still young and still learning. So sure, he might show flashes, but is he going to be the real deal? We'll see. I mean, from what we saw last season, he had a really solid year. And like I said, it's going to be young. Everybody does it. No one's perfect. Everyone's going to make mistakes. We see it all the time. I mean, there's some boneheaded mistakes. There's some dumb mistakes that we see. Even we see it all the time. So everyone's going to make mistakes. Everyone's going to have bad games here and there. And as a young player, you're going to have stretches where you're really good, and you're going to have stretches where you're going through rough patches. Last season, I think the good outweighed the bad. Now, sure, there was moments throughout the season where, I definitely think there are some games where he made some really good saves, but the Rangers just couldn't score for him. And I do think he had some good performances against some of the good teams out there. But this does create conversation. Because now that they've extended Georgiev, or Shesterkin rather, it makes the question, who's going to be the backup goaltender? Because now we know for a fact, I said going into last year, I think Shesterkin was the starting goaltender. But I think there was, not just Ranger fans, but I think the Rangers as a whole did want to see what Georgiev can do and what Shesterkin could do. Two young goaltenders. And I think now with this deal, this does go to show you that Shesterkin's the guy. He's the guy in New York for the New York Rangers. He's the guy that's going to be protecting the net at Madison Square Garden. They're not another guy. He's the guy. Now it creates the question of who's going to be the backup, because it's just being, if there was any conversation that Georgiev rather would be the starter or compete for the starting job, that's out the window, because you just gave Shesterkin a big deal. So now you got to wonder, now you got to think, well, what happens now if you're the Rangers? Is it Keith Kincaid, Is it Alexander Georgiev? Who's the backup goaltender? Because any of the conversation, I don't think there was much of it at all. But I do think there might have been some Rangers fans that maybe had the thought in their mind of if Georgiev could show. Because I'll tell you what, Georgiev had flashes last year. He shut out a good Islanders team, I think once or twice. Although throughout his career, he's dominated the Islanders. We see that in sports, where you'll have a player just have a player that just dominates a team for no reason. Like, it could be the most random team ever. It could be a really good team. It could just be random. But the guy that just dominates. Georgiev throughout his career has been really good against the Islanders. And he showed flashes last season of being really good. But now it creates the conversation, who's going to be the backup? And I'll tell you what, for being on the taxi squad and being on, being on the Rangers where you were the third goalie on the roster, and Keith Kincaid was really a pleasant surprise. He really was. And when Shesterkin went down with the groin injury, I remember that one Devils game, it looked like it was going to be much worse than what it was. He did still miss some time with it. When he went down with that injury, Keith Kincaid and Georgiev had his moments, but Keith Kincaid really stepped up. And I don't think a lot of people realize, but for a guy that was on the taxi squad not playing those games, I thought that he did a really good job. And I think it's got to cross your mind. Now, do they probably go with Georgiev as the backup? Probably. But I think that's got to cross your mind that Keith Kincaid should at least get an opportunity to be the backup goaltender. At least get an opportunity to show that he can be on the roster. At least get the opportunity. Because he had, for a guy that was on the taxi squad, and for a guy that in the weird year didn't get much game action, when he was out there, he was really good. He was. It's not easy getting called up from the taxi squad from really just doing scrimmages to just getting thrust into a game. And I believe his first game was against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which was a playoff team. He had a really good year last year. in the couple times that he played. And I felt like, too, he was a good guy around the locker room, too. Because I definitely think, after each game, he would tweet out the highlights from the game, almost do what Didi used to do with the Yankees and all that stuff. Like, I think he was a good guy in the locker room, too. I think he was respected around the locker room. And he's had experience in this league, too. Georgiev, on the other hand, hasn't had much experience. Nothing against Georgiev, but he struggled last season. He did not have a good year. Shesterkin had a good year, and Kincaid, for the limited time that he was in net, he had a good season. He did. And I think that's something that the Rangers got to put into thought and, maybe have it a preseason battle where in those preseason games, you're splitting time and, you're seeing what those guys can do. Because I think the backup's still a question. Who's going to be behind Shesterkin? Now we know for a fact that Shesterkin is solidified. He's the starting goaltender. He's the future in net for the New York Rangers. Who's next? Who's going to be that next guy? Is it going to be, who's that next guy? Is it going to be Georgiev or Kincaid? That's one of the big questions, though. And I know a lot of people are criticizing Chris Drury for his offseason. And personally, in my mind, I have to admit that I am a little surprised that the Rangers weren't as active. Obviously, the signing here and a couple other signings here. The Rangers did not make any vast improvements to their roster. I hate to say it, but if anything, I feel like the Rangers kind of are the same roster, which I was kind of shocked by because I thought we were going to go out and spend money. I was actually a little nervous that we were going to give up too much young talent and spend too much money on too many big-name players. But I am a little surprised. The Rangers haven't spent a crazy amount of money this offseason. Signing some guys here and there, but, I thought we were going to go all out for Eichel. I really did. Nah, the Eichel situation is just crazy, and I got to admit, I'm kind of tired of the Eichel situation. This is a situation that is just, out of this world crazy. You hear different things every day, and the Sabres still don't want to trade Eichel. They don't. They still aren't releasing his reports. I don't even think he's getting the surgery that he wanted to get on his neck. The whole Eichel situation is just wild. It really is. This could be a guy that who even knows if he plays this year. And if he does, I don't even know where it's going to be. I did expect the Rangers to be a little more active. But, at the same time, there wasn't many crazy big-name free agents out there. Sure, there was a couple. Ovechkin. But let's be honest. We all knew Ovechkin was going to be a Washington Capital. We all knew it. It was just a matter of time. And he re-signed. And he re-signed very quickly. There wasn't any major free agents out there. There wasn't, outside of Ovechkin, now we knew he was going to return to the Capital. So, in a way, I did not like the Buchnevich trade, and I still don't like that trade. Now, sure, if that trade goes out, and 2 years from now, Sammy Blais is, he's a key contributor to this team, sure. Different story, that's a different story. But right now, I still don't like that trade. I think this move definitely has, this extension here definitely has room for being a really successful extension. I definitely think there's room for, we got to see how he grows, and we got to see if he really does turn into the goaltender that we expect him to be. But I like the move. I think it's a good move. I do like it. I think it's a solid move. I think for a guy that he's the future of the goal, he's the future in net. He is. Now that Lundqvist is gone, and now that I think all the questions about Georgiev and all that stuff, those are done. He is the future in net for the New York Rangers. He's going to be the goalie for the New York Rangers for the next 4 years, and you got to hope beyond, because if he continues to go and play well, you got to hope he's here for his entire career, and that's the goal. He's going to be between the pipes at MSG. Alrighty, so report Igor Shesterkin Rangers reached $22.7 million contract, record for goalie's second deal. It only took 1 year for the New York Rangers to find a replacement in net for Henrik Lundqvist. Now the franchise is making sure that the solution is locked in for the next few years. According to the Daily Faceoff's Frank Saravalli, let's see here. Igor Shesterkin is re-upping with the Rangers for 4 years, $22.67 million, a record deal for a goaltender's second contract. So this is the logistics of the deal here. Hearing Igor Shesterkin new deal with the New York Rangers is 4 years, $22.666 million. 3 sixes, AAV of $5.65 million. So average annual value. That is the most money ever handed out in AAV and total dollars to an NHL goaltender on his second contract. So Rangers really going all in. Shesterkin signed a 2-year entry-level deal with New York in 2019 and quickly outplayed his contract. In 35 games last season, the Russian allowed 2.62 goals per game with 91.6 save percentage. Still just 25 years old, there's plenty of reason to believe Shesterkin will continue to improve over the duration of his new deal as the Rangers continue to rebuild. Like I mentioned, there's still room for improvement. And he showed a lot of flashes. So there's a lot of great potential in this deal. For the Rangers to find their goaltender of the future so quickly after the departure of Lundqvist will certainly help speed up that process up. Lundqvist manned the crease at Madison Square Garden for 15 years, winning the Vezina Trophy, Veznita, whatever, the top goalie, I don't know how to pronounce that, for the 2011-2012 season, and making the All-Star game 5 times. He left the Rangers with a career 91.8 save percentage and 2.43 goals against average. Now Shesterkin gets a chance to make his own mark on Broadway. The Rangers have not advanced past the first round of the postseason since 2016-2017, a streak that could come to an end rather quickly as the franchise locks up its new core. Chris Kreider and Barclay Goodrow are under contract through 2027. Artemi Panarin is signed through 2026 alongside Jacob Trouba and the number 1 overall pick in 2020. Alexis Lafreniere is still on a rookie deal until he becomes a restricted free agent in 2023. The Metropolitan Division that features other rebuilding clubs like the New Jersey Devils, Columbus Blue Jackets, and Philadelphia Flyers, that may be more than enough to contend for a postseason spot in the near future. All that's left for Shesterkin is to prove is that he can be the playoff goaltender who led the Rangers, the playoff goaltender who leads the Rangers to a Stanley Cup for the first time since 1994, something Lundqvist was unable to do over his 15 years in New York. Now, he did not ever win a cup, but Lundqvist, I mean, he's going to go down as an all-time great Ranger. He will. And I don't know. I mean, you could make the argument Lundqvist is going to go down as one of the all-time great goalies. Top 10, maybe top 5. He was a great. Outside of not winning a Stanley Cup, he was an all-time great. So, you know, kind of hard to say here because I think Shesterkin is going to be a very good goalie. I do, and I like this move. It's just a matter of saying that he's gonna be like do what Lundqvist did. I don't know if that's true because Lundqvist, you're asking him to be like an all-time great. Then, I mean, Lundqvist can go down. Lundqvist. I don't know if there's gonna be many goalies in a Rangers history that are better than Henrik Lundqvist. I really don't. And I think all of us can agree on that. I don't really know if there's another goalie that's gonna be better than Henrik Lundqvist in the New York Rangers. That's just my opinion on it. So, we'll see. But, hey, Chris Drury going out, extending Shesterkin. They obviously have belief in him. He showed a lot of potential last season. He's going to continue to grow and only can continue to get better. And, hey, the New York Rangers got their goalie. Alrighty, so that's what I got for the Igor Shesterkin extension there. And then let's get to... Alrighty, so, alright, so let's get to this. So let's get to the, I'm sorry, it's taking a little bit here. Let's get to the, MLB update and New York sports update. Alright, I know there's been so much news around Lionel Messi. With him, it's been wild. Like, I don't know anything about soccer, but there's been so many updates coming all over the place. I guess he's leaving his main Barcelona, whatever, and it's wild because I don't watch soccer, and I'm getting all these crazy updates. And, it's just like, I'm like, okay, like, not trying to be mean or anything, because I know there's some big soccer fans out there, but I just don't know what they're talking about. Like, I mean, I know what they're talking about because he's a big name. But I just, I don't know many of the other teams. So it's kind of funny because I'm getting all these updates and it's just like, I'm like, okay. It is big, though. I mean, I do think he's been there for a long time, but I don't watch soccer, and nor do I talk about it. I can't tell you last time I even watched a soccer game. So, anyway, let's get to the baseball and New York sports update. Yesterday, the Padres won, White Sox won, and Indians won. Only 4 games on yesterday. Yankees got their job done yesterday, 8-6 in 11 innings, and they moved to 62-50 on the season. So, like I said, even though we didn't get the sweep, we still get the job done yesterday. We're now 6 back in the AL, and I don't know if we made up any. We might have made up some ground on the wild card. I could check here. Let's get this up here. We might have made some ground on the wild card. Because the A's, I don't think, played yesterday. Yeah, so we gained a half. So we are now 2 games back in the wild card. And we're 8-2 on our last 10. Blue Jays are 3 back. Seattle 5.5 back. So not much changed. A lot more will change today with all the other teams playing. But that's kind of the update for that. And then the Angels, Indians. For some reason, I don't know why, I feel like the Blue Jays are going to make some sort of run. I don't know why it is. I just do. I mean, they got a talented team. Springer, Bichette, Vlad. You look at their pitching staff, and now they've got guys like Hyun-Jin Ryu and Jose Barrios. And, I mean, they've got a lot of really good talent on that roster. I am shocked that they are 60-50 and not in a wild card. Don't be surprised if the wild card's Yankees and Blue Jays. I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be. I think the Blue Jays are more than capable of making a run. I really do. Alright, so let's get to the games for today. We got the Cubs, Brewers. I'll give Brewers the win. Blue Jays, Angels. Give Blue Jays the win. Cardinals, Pirates. Give Cardinals the win. Dodgers, Phillies. Ooh, that's kind of funny because Scherzer, his last start as a National was at Philly. And now his second start as a Dodger, I believe this is his second start, is now at Philly. So he's pitched to Philly twice, but 2 different teams. Give me the Dodgers. Even though the Phillies are hot, I think the Dodgers are going to get the win. Alrighty. Orioles, Tigers. I'll give Orioles the win. A's, Indians. Give A's the win. We'll get to the Mets in a second. Red Sox, Rays. Give Red Sox the win. Braves, Reds. Give Reds the win. Actually, Braves. They've been hot. Brewers, Cubs. Doubleheader. Give me the Brewers. Cubs stink. Astros, Cheaters, Rockies, give Cheaters the win. White Sox, Twins, give White Sox the win. Giants, Diamondbacks, give Giants the win. And Blue Jays, Angels, give Blue Jays the win. So there's 2 doubleheaders today. I'll give Blue Jays the win in both. Why not? Alrighty, so the Mets play today as well. Mets come in this game 56-55. Nationals come in this game 50-62. This game goes on today, 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. Washington's got Espino on the mound. He's 3-3 with a 3.66 ERA. And the Mets got Carlos Carrasco on the mound. He's 0-0 with a 3.24 ERA. The over-under for this game is set at 8.5. And 65% of people think the Mets will win. I think they'll win. I do. I think they will. I mean, even though the Nationals are struggling and stuff, I think they're going to get the win, personally. Actually, I don't even know. That's tough. Because the Mets stink. I mean, the Mets stink right now. You know, maybe the Nationals do get a. I'll tell you this. I think they will win, but I don't think they sweep the series. I think, I'm not saying they're going to win the series or sweep the series, but I do think they'll win tonight. I'll leave it at that. Alrighty, so maybe they'll sweep. Who knows? Just Mets have been playing so bad though, and there's that thought in my mind where they lost 3 out of 4 against the Marlins, and the Nationals are a better team than the Marlins. So, I mean, they are back home, and they're just not playing good baseball. And sometimes, when you're not playing good baseball, you just can't beat anyone. So, realistically, probably the Mets are favored in this game. But the way they've been playing and their hitting and overall their play, you got to look at the Nationals to feel confident. And the Nationals, too, they're playing loose. They're not making the playoffs this season. They sold at the deadline. Like, there's a sense of urgency definitely in that Mets locker room. And sometimes when that urgency sets in, and sometimes when there's too much, sometimes when there's too much urgency and there's too much tense, you get too tense in the locker room. Sometimes that results in losses. And the Nationals, the Nationals is a team that's not going for the playoffs. They're resetting. They don't got much pressure on them. Mets got a lot of pressure on them. So I'll give the Mets the win, but Don't be surprised if the Nationals come in there and get the win. And the Yankees-Royals play the second game of the three-game set today. Yankees come in this game 62-50. Royals come in this game 48-63. Yankees got Nestor Cortez on the mound. He's 0-0 with a 2.15 ERA. And the Royals got Lynch on the mound. He's 3-2-3 with a 6.00 ERA. The over-under for this game is 10. This game goes on today, 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time on OB Network. And you can also find this game on Yes Network. Let's get to this. So, 88% of people think the Yankees will win. Give me the Yankees. Alrighty, so as for fantasy baseball, I'm currently winning 337-3. And today I've got going Leodier Molina, Matt Olson, Marcus Semien, Austin Riley, Jake Cronenworth, Carlos Correa, Gene Segura, Christian Yelich, Whit Merrifield, Manuel Margot, Avisail Garcia, Josh Harrison, and Luke Voit. I actually think I might put in... I sat Will Smith because I got Molina, because Molina's in. Molina's playing the Pirates. But I might put Will Smith in because Aaron Nola struggled this season. Got like 4.49 ERA. So I don't know. And then I got Nestor Cortez on the mound. So I made a roster move today. I dropped Kyle Quantrill and picked up Nestor Cortez. So I got a pitcher for the day, and I added him, and he's already been on the roster before. No real injury update other than J.P. Crawford. He's still day-to-day. There's no update on him. He was out of the Sunday lineup against the Yankees. No real update on him. He did come in, I believe, later in the game. So we'll see how all that plays out and stuff like that. So that will be interesting. Alrighty, that's what I got for the podcast. I'm winning 37-3 in fantasy. He's got a pitcher going today. I believe he's got Freddie Peralta, who's had a really great year for the Brewers. Kind of an under-the-radar Cy Young candidate for the Brewers there. But I think he's got Freddie Peralta and he's got the rest of his team going. I've got, obviously, Nestor Cortez. So Cortez, if he could just give me 10 points, I'll be okay with that. Just 10 points. And then hopefully my lineup produces otherwise. I dropped Jesus Aguilar the other day, and I'm not regretting it, but I'm not, it's not something that I'm crazy happy about, but I'm not regretting it. I mean, I needed to make a roster move, and he was kind of the lonely guy left, but someone already picked him up. But Voit had a good game yesterday. He did. Voit came out clutch yesterday. He had a good game. No other way to put it. And the Yankees as a whole found a way to win. And they got to find another way today to get a win. And the Mets need to learn how to win again because they seem to forget. They've seemed to forgot how to win. So they got to find a way to get the win today. If they want any chance of going into the Dodgers-Giants stretch with optimism, you got to at least win this series. Because if you get swept this series, it's just brutal. And I was listening to a guy yesterday on the radio, and there was sports talk. It was kind of saying, like, the Mets, like, no matter if the Mets were 10 games below 500, and they were first place in the NL East, those Dodgers and Giants games still would look scary. But they look even more scary because now you're a struggling baseball team, and you're injured, and you're not playing good baseball, and you're losing against bad teams, and, like, now comes the point in the season where you got to watch out because, this is where the season could go from bad to where you're done. These stretch of games here. And it starts really tonight. You got the Nationals. The MLB kind of gave you a nice, easy series. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I don't think many people expected the Nationals to be this bad, but, I mean, Nationals are not an impossible team to beat. We all know that. So even if the Nationals still had all their big-name guys, it wouldn't have been an impossible team to beat because when they had those big-name guys, they weren't in anything a special team either. But now without them, it makes it even that much easier. So we'll see how the Mets do. Yankees go for the series win today, and then tomorrow, if they got the win today, you got to go for the sweep tomorrow, but got to focus on today's game. They go for the series win. And, that'll do it. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.